All right, guys. So it breaks my heart to have to do this, but since you can't go on your real Washington, D.C. trip together, we are going to do a virtual one. So nowhere near as fun because there's no 4-hour bus ride and lots of junk food and your sleepover where you stay up way too late and then you're cranky the next day and all that good stuff. But to be honest, even on a normal year, which of course this so is not, I would give this little presentation before you guys went on your trip just to fill you with knowledge so you can honestly impress the tour guides that are taking you around the city. So we're just going to kind of up the ante a little bit since unfortunately you're not going to be able to go, at least not right now. Hopefully you guys will all get the opportunity to get there someday if you haven't already. So first, Washington, D.C., we all know, filled with statues and monuments and all that kind of historical stuff. So I don't know if any of you guys knew this before, but there's a little bit of a myth that goes along with historic statues. So if you haven't noticed, particularly the old ones like Rev War, Civil War, and 1812, a lot of them look like this, very heroic and blah blah blah. So nonetheless, there's a little myth that goes with them that basically says that how the statue is posed represents something about the person itself in the statue, and that is a complete myth. They used to say that if the horse was up like this, like the person died in battle. If the horse only had one leg up, it meant they were wounded. I'm not going to get into the details because it's a myth. So if anyone told you that, ignore it and move on. The next thing before we head out to DC is I usually just give this map. DC is a really cool city. It's laid out, most people would say fairly nicely, especially as far as tourists are concerned. There's a whole lot of walking, but it is totally walkable. And so all the major stuff that you would have seen on your trip is really within this radius. Just as a side note, this is Washington, D.C., and you guys actually would have crossed the border and gone into Virginia, which is where this stuff is located over here, particularly Arlington Cemetery you guys usually get to go to. So memorize the map, look at it, stare at it, because this is important. If you have a good tour guide when you're on the bus, they would normally point out all the important things, but they don't always do that. So it's good for you guys to study this ahead of time. So when you're on the bus and you're driving here, you kind of know what's on your left, on your right, because you might even pick up on historic sites that you weren't, going to check out. So with that in mind, you have it memorized. Ready? Which one did you miss? Ooh, what are the missing objects? Da-da-da-da. We're not going to play this game because we're not in one room together, so whatever. So nonetheless, memorize the map. It's just good to know. So we're going to play a game, name that landmark, and we're going to go through them together. Here's some of the biggies. Anyone know it? Anyone? If you guessed Arlington Cemetery, you are correct. So again, this one is in Virginia. If we were going there tomorrow, I would warn you to wear comfortable shoes because there's a lot of walking. It's very hilly. I would also give you the little lecture to be respectful because as much as we're all going there as a lovely little, class trip and we're laughing and giggling at different things, it of course is in fact a cemetery. It wouldn't be unlikely for you guys to go there and see some families visiting loved ones, possibly even some kind of a ceremony or something like that. So it's really cool because as you see here, it's all very symmetrical. It's all done to be very appealing to the eye, very simple, but very somber and very honorable to those who are buried there. So Arlington Cemetery, good for you. Sorry, just booted me out. So here's a little known fact, if I can get back in here. At Arlington Cemetery, a lot of people miss this very important point, and you just saw the giveaway there. It is actually Robert E. Lee's house. If you don't remember, he was leader of the Confederate Army during the Civil War, even though he had a lot of ties to the North, and it was this big struggle and decision. Long story short, this is actually his house. And so basically, as a way to get back at the man, the Union soldiers took their dead and started burying it around his home. And they actually did that because then, it would make the house unlivable. Well, obviously they did it as a reminder to him, to the lives that he cost, but then it also affected him being able to live there because it, after so many bodies, would have been designated a cemetery. So it's really kind of an interesting history with how Arlington Cemetery started. It started right with the Civil War and those bodies getting buried there. So look for it the next time you get to go there. An important part of Arlington Cemetery is, of course, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Now, there are a couple of tombs of unknown soldiers around the country. This is arguably the most important. So you can see here, there's actually 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This body was actually exhumed, as it says labeled there. So it is no longer there. They were actually, with modern technology, able to identify the body And so the body is no longer there, which is really cool. Now, if you go there, they actually perform the ceremony for you. So these soldiers have a whole, I mean, I don't want to call it a routine, but it's basically this military routine that they do with marching and such. There's plenty of videos of it online if you want to check it out. And here are some really cool facts about all of this. So read it over as I'm talking, but like some of the most impressive to me is just these little details. Like this is a quite honored job by these military gentlemen. It requires insane amounts of training. It requires insane amount of discipline. There are very specific criteria for these gentlemen, like sacrifices that they make for this very honored position. One of the most intense things for me is that they are there, rain, shine, whatever. There was one time in history in which they were actually told to stand down and leave their post, and out of honor for the dead, they refused to. So it's really, really crazy, all the details that are in here. So hopefully you're getting a chance to look it over and maybe even get a chance to Google it and check out the ceremony. What was I going to say? There's like a little room behind the tomb. You can't see it here, which is like an elevator that takes them to lower quarters where they, prepare for their duty on that site. And there's something else I want to say, but I can't remember what it is right now. Yeah, I don't know. Honor position, ridiculous, insane test that they have to take in order to get that position, and moving on. Also at Arlington Cemetery, you have the gravesite for John F. Kennedy, right, which we just studied together. So this is the eternal flame. His wife, Jacqueline Kennedy, now Onassis, was the first one to light that flame. And so it's the eternal flame in memory of him. Oh, I remember what I wanted to say about the soldiers. It's leaving my head again. Oh, it had to do with Kennedy. All right, maybe we'll come back. Anyway, I know, I'm a little insane. Sorry, summertime's starting to sink in. So with that, the eerie detail about it as well was that he went to Arlington Cemetery, like, very soon before he left for his trip in which he was assassinated. So there's a whole thing there too. Oh, there we go. Oh, didn't realize there. So there's your info there. This is the quote that his wife made when burying him. So you would have also gone to the Holocaust Museum. So I'm leaving this on there as well if you would like to investigate it. There's tons of exhibits online that you can actually check out and go look at on your own. So check out those exhibits. This is, of course, the Lincoln Memorial. So not too many fun details about this one, but here's when it was back before it was created. This was apparently a really bad area as far as Washington, D.C. was concerned. As you can see here, it was like a swampy, smelly, whatever area, and then they ended up building this. And if you go there now, it's one of the main attractions with all the monuments and the reflecting pool and so on. My favorite fact is that in the background here, it has his famous speeches. And there's actually a typo there. One of the words is supposed to be future, and they spelled it incorrectly and made the F an E. And you can actually find that there on the wall still today. They actually tried to correct it, but it's very obvious that there was an error there. There are also some conspiracies tied to Lincoln's, obviously, big deal with the Civil War and everything. So not that this is a conspiracy, but some people say his hands, if you see them resting here, his hands were actually created to spell out in sign language an A and L, Abraham Lincoln. I don't know. There's a ton of other little conspiracy theories about him online as well as far as the monument's concerned. I don't really believe them, but they're fun to check out if you want to go look at it. If you're standing on the steps there, you can look down and see, you'll be able to see the Washington Monument. It's the tallest structure in Washington, D.C. I think I put facts. There we go. It is 555 feet tall, which means it doesn't need a little light on it to prevent airplanes from hitting it. So it's like just as tall as it possibly could be. There's also some fun details on this page for that as well, just in terms of the structure being this like architectural feat because of how they built it. There's also a little story about the cherry blossoms that used to line up on the sides here. And that's pretty much it. So just as an idea, this is the Washington Monument right here. I'm sorry. I can't speak. The Lincoln Memorial is right here where I'm circling, and then you look straight ahead to the Washington Monument. As we go around the reflecting pool, the Vietnam War Memorial is going to be over here, and the Korean War Memorial is going to be over here. And you can't really see it, but the World War II Memorial is right over here. The Capitol building is going to be over in this direction. The White House is going to be somewhere over here, just to give you a little layout of the land there. So this is one of my favorites to look at because again, the symbolism, the imagery is super, super crazy and detailed. So these are all huge life-size beyond structures. So it kind of, for me, takes my breath away. Here are some of the details about it. So as far as the statues are concerned, they are representing all different areas of the military. If you go back and look, I think I actually have a better picture here, and you stand in certain directions, you see the reflection of these guys here. So if you remember from the Korean War, the 38th parallel was kind of the line that divided North and South, and it was like a big symbolic thing. It was a 38-month war and blah, blah, blah. So they kind of based the entire memorial on that idea. But here you go, some other details. I remember when I was little, you were actually able to walk through these things. You can't do that anymore. Just as a side note, if you ever get to visit. As far as the Vietnam War Memorial, so this one, if we were going, I would warn you to be on your best behavior at this one. Not that you shouldn't be on your best behavior at all of them, but this one in particular, every single time I've gone, and I was just there back in December, January, every time I've been there, this is the quietest area in Washington, D.C. All the other memorials, people, are just talking. They're taking their pictures and blah, blah, blah. Vietnam, I find, is always a very somber experience. People are very quiet when they go through this walk. So as we've already studied, the Vietnam War was controversial from beginning to end and everywhere in between. This monument was no different. It was a huge controversy. Nobody actually even wanted to touch it, and people were starting to get annoyed that Washington hadn't done anything to remember it, so they actually threw out this memorial as a contest. And it was this college student who was an architect who designed this and won. And again, people were upset because it was so simple and it wasn't, flashy with the fountains and the statues like everything else. Now, most people actually change their mind and they find the simplicity really kind of takes in everything that the war involved. So one thing that's unique about this one is when you walk in, the lives that were lost are all written on those walls, and they're done in chronological order based on the very first person who lost their life all the way to the very last person. So if you had a loved one who died at Vietnam and you want to find them on the wall, there's a little book in the beginning here, and you find their name alphabetically in the book, and it tells you where to find it on the wall, which is really interesting. A lot of people also leave things here on the wall. It gets cleared out every single night. You'll also find a lot of people put paper up on the wall on the name and kind of with a crayon or chalk or something, kind of scrape their names onto the paper and keep that as a memory of the person that they were coming here to visit. Also at the Vietnam Memorial, later on, you had these more realistic images added on, and I think these reflect a lot more of what the war actually entailed as far as, what they posted on the media and so on and so forth, with it being this very graphic and brutal war. So this is a World War II memorial. This one is big and flashy, and it is a fairly recent one, actually, considering how long ago the war was. This monument, I actually give credit to Tom Hanks for. They started building this whole thing and then just ran out of money. And during that time, Tom Hanks was actually preparing for his role in Saving Private Ryan. And he was so touched by what he learned about the veterans of that war that he really started to promote and push for fundraising to get this monument done, which is really cool. Now, this monument has tons of symbolism. I don't even have time to talk about it. It shows the Pacific, it shows Europe, it shows all the different states that were involved, it shows all the different countries involved. So it's really cool. There's a lot of detail. You can spend plenty of time just at this one little section. This is the U.S. Marine Corps Memorial. Hopefully this image looks familiar. It's actually from World War II, of course. If you remember, we were talking about the flags of our father and how this was this famous image from Iwo Jima of them raising the flag, finally saying that they've saved that territory. This is on the Virginia side, so you'll usually see it if you're going over to Arlington Cemetery. If you keep an eye out for it from the car, you'll see it, and it's ginormous. You can tell the person standing right here gives you an idea of the size of this monument. It's really kind of breathtaking. World War I. Kind of sad, super, super little. And we'll talk in a little more detail about that tomorrow. So we're going to leave it there. hopefully you got all my fancy details in. If not, you got a little quizzage you're going to do on the document to find out if you took in everything that I said. And with that in mind, I leave you until the other part of our trip tomorrow. Get a good night's rest. You still got more walking to do through DC tomorrow. Don't eat too much junk food or play too many video games tonight during your hotel sleepover. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.